Welcome back. It's good to see you today. Hope you're doing well. If you're a Chiefs fan, I'm sure you are, probably still walking around on cloud nine from the Super Bowl victory. Most of us have not in our lifetime ever seen the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. They got there, they won. They won in a fourth quarter comeback style. There aren't very many fourth quarter comebacks in the Super Bowls. Kansas City has won. Congratulations to everybody. Patrick Mahomes, congratulations. If he weren't on the team, none of this would happen, regardless of how hard anybody else worked. So congratulations to the major talent that is Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Brett Veach, Eric Bieniemy, Steve Spagnuolo. Hope everybody enjoys it. The offseason is rapidly coming back around. I tried to leave you guys alone for a couple of weeks and just let you enjoy it before we got into any of the looking ahead, into any of the analytics. But congratulations to everybody on the hard work. A very satisfying moment, I'm sure. I'm sure they've had plenty of time to just kind of sit back for a couple of moments at least and just soak it in and just think about the excitement and just enjoy it. In the sports world, there's not much better than winning a championship, and specifically, I think, winning the Super Bowl. There's got to be a lot of satisfaction in that. Very happy, especially for Andy Reid. It's not fair, but there have always been Andy Reid skeptics and doubters because he hasn't won a championship. That's not a fair way to view him, never has been, but that's just the way the sports world works. It's a results-oriented world, and that's just the way it is. I know he understands that. But he's the same coach today that he was 3 weeks ago, or that he was 3 years ago, and more or less is just as good as he was 10 years ago. It's the same guy, but he finally now has a championship on that resume, so I'm sure that's a load off his mind as well. In the scheme of sports and things of that nature, congratulations to Andy Reid. Brett Veach, congratulations. Very aggressive last offseason, very aggressive. You did it. Everything you put together worked. Everything fit together like a mosaic. It just worked. So congratulations. Tremendous accomplishment here to put together a Super Bowl victory. Congratulations to you, Brett Veach. And then, of course, to Eric Bieniemy. I can remember watching him play running back at Colorado, I think in the early 90s. I've got one of his football cards here at my place. So congratulations to Eric Bieniemy. A major accomplishment doing that, and Steve Spagnuolo as well, upgrading the defense this year. It just all came together. So congratulations to everybody. There's a temptation here, quite honestly, to not cover the Chiefs, because anytime this offseason that I will be tempted to criticize or question something, everybody can just always say, basically shut up, because Andy Reid won a Super Bowl and Brett Veach won a Super Bowl, and they know what they're doing. And that's true. So we'll keep that in mind if something comes up where we start to question what they're doing. Yes, we know they won a Super Bowl and they know what they're doing. But at some point, I'm sure we will question something. That's just the nature of what we do when we're covering the team. But congratulations to everybody involved. One question, and this is an important question before we look at the quarterback and the offensive line. Anytime somebody wins a championship, it's a fair question to ask. Could we just bring everybody back? After all, we were the best. Everybody else has got to catch up to us. Could we just bring back everybody from last year's roster, maybe add in the 5 or 6 draft picks that we have this season, add them into the roster, and just move forward with that? And the answer is yes. It's a very good question, and it's an important question. If we wanted to, could we just bring everybody back? After all, we were the best. Why not just let everybody else figure out how to catch up to us? It would take a little bit of financial maneuvering, not much. They would probably have to backload the Andrew Wiley contract, probably also have to backload, for sure, the Chris Jones contract, and then do a little bit of maybe a couple of restructures, a couple of other contracts. There wouldn't be any salary cap room left over, but they could do it. If Kansas City wanted to, they could just bring everybody back, add in their draft picks, drop a guy here or there, and have the same basic roster coming back for next offseason. That's not going to happen. That's not how real life works. Financially, that wouldn't put you in good shape for 21 and 22 and beyond. Also, I'm sure Andy Reid and Brett Veach are going to be scratching and clawing and doing everything they can not to remain the same, but to get a little bit better heading into next season, because all the other teams are going to be trying to get better as well. But that's an important question. Anytime you're winning a title, which is a good problem to have, what can we do coming back? Quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, $5.2 million this season. Absolute steal. What an absolute bargain. He's still on his rookie contract. In 2021, everything changes. Financially, everything changes. But for this next season, 2020, you've still got Mahomes on his rookie contract. $5.2 million is his cap number this season. And, of course, he's just an absolute elite guy, the best of the best. The scary thing is Patrick Mahomes could actually still improve. There is still room for him to get better. And I'm sure whenever he gets ready to talk contract, maybe they've already started, I haven't been keeping up, he's got all the leverage in the world. He had all the leverage in the world before this season. Everybody knew how good he was. Now we've already seen in just his third season that he can win a Super Bowl. He can lead a fourth quarter comeback in the Super Bowl. So he's got all the leverage in the world. He can basically name his price. Kansas City is going to negotiate with him. And we'll see where that actually lands, whether or not he wants to give them any kind of a discount at all. But I'm sure that contract is going to end up somewhere around $40 million a season, give or take a few $1 million, depending on how much Patrick Mahomes actually wants to try to hold out for, try to ask for. He can pretty much name his price, though, and he's going to get that. But for this season, only $5.2 million. And what that does for this season, NFL windows for winning are often short, but that allows you another season for the Chiefs to be really aggressive if they want to. They don't have as much cap space this year as they did last offseason, but that's okay. They know how good of a roster they've got. They know that they've got a roster that's capable of winning the Super Bowl. So if they want to, they can once again be very aggressive with how they build the roster, even though they don't have the same cap freedom that they had last season. Patrick Mahomes, $5.2 million allows that to happen. What's behind Patrick Mahomes? Not a lot. Matter of fact, two of the guys are free agents. Matt Moore and Chad Henne, both are free agents. If Kansas City wants to, they could bring them back. My personal choice would be to let Chad Henne go, and I'll just let him walk, and I'll bring Matt Moore back. I don't want to let them both go because I really like the idea of having somebody who's been in the system for a while, somebody who's been with me and has kind of gotten used to the organization and the system and kind of knows everything. Matt Moore got on the field for a few snaps last season, so I'll bring Matt Moore back, and I'll let Chad Henne go. Don't be surprised at whatever Kansas City decides to do there. The temptation, of course, is I would love to bring back a young quarterback, but there's really no need to do that at all, even to train a guy. You would really like to see this year at least those draft picks go toward developing the roster and trying to win another Super Bowl while you still have Mahomes here at $5.2 million. So Shermer already signed a reserve futures contract. Remains to be seen how that will play out as far as him being on the roster for next season. But Henne and Moore are both free agents. Wouldn't cost much to bring either one of those guys back. Just how good was the offense last year? We know they won a Super Bowl. We know they had weapons all over the field. We know that Patrick Mahomes is great and awesome and everything else on the football field. But just how good were they statistically? Not quite as good maybe as you would expect when you look at the talent on the roster. Yards per game, number 6 overall, and points per game, number 5 overall. Passing yards per game, number 5 overall as well. The biggest reason, I think, because me, if I walked into it blind and hadn't been keeping up with it all year, when I just look at the talent on the roster versus the talent on everybody else's offenses, I would say this would be the number 1 rated offense easily, but it's not. It's number 6 and 5 and 5, and the other metrics that you see kind of support that same thing. So the numbers are a little bit suppressed statistically, but I think the biggest reason for that is because of the injuries to the offensive line. Kansas City scored points just about no matter what, no matter who was playing offensive line this season. But there's no doubt when you don't have your top 5 starters, and there's a pretty big drop-off for Kansas City once you got past those top 5 or 6 guys, there's no question that hinders the offense a little bit. And so I think that the injuries to the offensive line are why, and this is really not overly important, but you do have to ask the question, why weren't we number 1 in offense all last year? I think that's the biggest reason why that you're sitting there number 5 and number 6. Still had a high-octane offense, and certainly when everybody was healthy, you probably had the best offense in football. I haven't dived into that, but I'm sure nobody else would be wanting to not take your roster over their roster when you look at Patrick Mahomes and all the weapons he had this offseason. Number 23 overall in rushing yards per game. Now, it's easy to just say that's not a big deal at all because nobody cares about running the football anymore. But we know that anytime you have the ability to run the football, that just opens up more holes for Patrick Mahomes to throw the football, because defenses have to be a little bit honest about how they guard the run. For Andy Reid and for Patrick Mahomes, though, that's not an issue. We all know that. We understand how the Kansas City offense works. When I look at other teams in the NFL who don't have Patrick Mahomes, who don't run the offense the way Andy Reid does, whenever I see this, number 23, I recommend trying to improve that at least up into the top 15, top 12 if you can, because it's not important that you run the ball as often as you pass the ball in this league anymore. We're decades past that. But what is important, if you're an offense, is that defenses know that you can run the football against them, and that just spreads defenses out even more. Fair question to ask. If Kansas City had the ability to run the ball better, if they had a more top-flight running back, if they had an offensive line that was geared just as much toward running the football talent-wise as they are toward pass blocking, would you have an even better offense? The answer is yes. Anytime you're more potent in one area right here of running the football, the overall offense is going to benefit from that and be better. But Kansas City doesn't have to worry about that because of how creative they are in the passing game, because they have weapons all over the football field who can catch the football, because they have Patrick Mahomes, because Mahomes himself can take off the football anytime he wants to. Why would you really want to take that ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands anymore? So it's not something I would worry about. I would recommend, maybe as the offseason goes along, we'll see if there's not a way they could upgrade, but it's certainly not a worry. When Andy Reid builds his offenses, he always builds them to pass the ball first and to pass the ball creatively and to essentially use the passing game as a running game. Most of the NFL does that to some degree, but Andy Reid is really way out there, very, very extreme with this in terms of doing that. He's even like that on defense. When you look at the way he builds the defenses, and I know Spagnuolo really had a heavier influence this year, but when you look at Andy Reid defenses over the past few seasons, and you look at the personnel they're selecting, they are guys who are better at pass covers than they are anything else, even when you look at the linebacker spots. Okay, so not worried about that. You just note that, hey, we could be better possibly if we wanted to invest in a running game. They really haven't done that. Their running backs are all very, very well rounded, even though none of them are particularly great at running the football. The offensive line. Good offensive line last year, not great. Again, this is an area, and as a general manager, no matter whether you win the Super Bowl or you're the worst team in the NFL, you always have to ask, how can we get better? What areas of the team could we possibly get better? And you look at the offensive line, and you find that they spent a pretty healthy amount of money on the offensive line, and the offensive line was good. Not great, not bad, it was good. It was solid, okay? They had guys they could count on all across the board, starting with Mitchell Schwartz, very elite guy, top tackle, $10.8 million next season, pretty fair cap space number. Not a super bargain, pretty decent bargain. On the other side of the tackle spot, sorry, stumbled a little bit here, Eric Fisher. I wasn't a huge Eric Fisher fan early in his career because you looked at where he was drafted and he didn't seem to be living up to that. He just seemed to be a solid starter every single season. But the longer his career gets, and every single season he just keeps churning out another consistent season, I get to be a bigger and bigger fan of his. You're paying for it. $15 million for left tackle is not a deal. It's not even average. It's at the high end. But that's okay. You've got two guys here at tackle that you know you can count on, and you know that you can win that way. Okay, they've proven now that they can win that way. Eric Fisher, solid guy there at left tackle, $15 million. Between these two guys right here, and with Reeder, and with Dr. Laurent, you have a total of 26, 35, $38 million just in 4 offensive linemen. That's a lot of salary cap space to devote to one person. We'll talk about that in a second. Moving on to tackle here, let's talk about Cam Erving for a second. Cam Erving played a lot of valuable snaps. Cam Erving is a guy, and by the way, I don't have him listed as a free agent. He technically is, I think, a free agent, but they have a club option on him for $4.6 million. So if they want to bring him back at $4.6 million, they can do that. It's totally up to them. I don't know if they'll pick that up or not. When you look at Cam Erving, and this is why he was originally drafted so high in the first round, he is a true athlete. He is so smooth. He is so agile. He runs like a tight end. He is a true athlete, and he's enormous. He's one of the bigger players in the NFL, and all those things combined, that athleticism that you're really looking for when you look for first-round draft picks and guys that you think can be future stars, is all there for Cam Erving. The problem for Cam Erving is he just doesn't seem that interested in blocking anybody. His leverage is bad, even in the running game. As smooth as he is, he pulls in any direction just smoothly. I mean, he is so smooth and so athletic and just fast for an offensive lineman. He just doesn't block anybody when he gets there. In the running game, when they're pulling and pushing this way and that way and trapping, he just really doesn't usually block anybody when he gets there. Even in the passing game with pass blocking, he's better at pass blocking than he is at run blocking. But even at pass blocking, you see him getting beaten around the edges very often. Very often you see him continuing to back up, and he can be even backed up into the quarterback very often. You see that a lot. So he's not a starter, and he shouldn't be a starter in the NFL. Having said that, now he's a valuable guy. You look at Cam Erving and you just look, you're like, man, I really want you to step up and step into that athleticism and just fulfill that potential that you seem to have, and he's never done that. Even so, though, he's a valuable guy because he is so athletic. He can play any position on the offensive line, and there's some real value to that. I don't know if Kansas City is going to bring him back at $4.6 million or not. We'll see what Brett Veach and Andy Reid decide to do there. But that's what you're looking at with Cam Erving, somebody who is so athletic and yet just struggles to block in both the passing game and the running game. You can see it on film very easily. Just not much question there. Allegretti back for $622,000. Reeder really stepped up at center. This isn't a star. He's not an all-star in the making, but really stepped up there. That was a question mark heading into the season. You've got him for only $2.8 million for a starting offensive lineman. That's a good deal. So the Chiefs need that value right there at center. And they know that pretty much they know that they can count on him to turn out, I would suspect, another solid season there at center. He's not the top 10 in the league at his position, but that's very solid. You really appreciate being able to count on that, just like you appreciate being able to count on Fisher and Schwartz. A lot of questions over here at guard, and we'll end our time here today with the questions right here at guard. Andrew Wiley stepped up and had a very solid season. He won the starting job outright at guard last year. Had a really, really solid season. The problem is he's now a free agent. And so the question is, what do I do with him? And while I'm thinking about that question, I want to think about who else is on my offensive line. Do I have a lot of holes? Who else do I have at guard? The answer is they really don't have anybody else lined up at guard to step up and start yet. However, the rest of the offensive line is not an issue. Reeder is signed at center. You've got your tackles here ready to go. They're all signed. Dr. Laurent, we'll talk about him more in a second, but he's signed as well. So you've got 4 offensive line positions already taken care of. You don't even have to worry about that at all. So what that does, it gives you the freedom with that fifth spot. If you don't want to sign Wiley, you don't have to. And you're already spending a lot of money here. Before we even count Wiley at all, you're already spending a boatload of money here on the offensive line. And so if I wanted to bring him back, how much would it cost me? And this is really where the market isn't totally certain. When you have a guy like Wiley who stepped up and had one really good season here on the offensive line, was a true starter, held his own, did very well, how much is he going to get in free agency? Now, my thought is that he's probably going to pull down $8 to $10 million a season in free agency. And when I look at the cap number for the Chiefs moving forward, not in 2020 necessarily, but in 21, 22, and 23, I don't think it makes good sense to spend $8 to $10 million on Wiley a season moving forward. If I could get him for $5 or $6 million a season, I would do it in a heartbeat. But I think, and again, we're not sure exactly what he's going to be able to get in free agency because you don't know how other teams are going to look at him. But I think that he's going to pull down $8 to $10 million a season in free agency. That's just my opinion. And so I am very tempted to pass on Andrew Wiley and let him walk into free agency. I'm going to talk to him and see if he's at all interested in signing for $5 or $6 million a season. I don't think he will be. I don't think I can get him for that. If I could get him for 2 or 3 seasons at $5 or $6 million a season, I would do that. I think there's good value there at getting a starter on the offensive line for $5 or $6 million. But of course, Wiley and his agent are going to know that as well, and I think they're going to know, I think, that they can get more in free agency if they test the water. So I would assume, I don't know this, I would assume that Brett Veach will let Andrew Wiley go in order to have more cap space to spend in other places. When you look at Dr. Laurent, he has really struggled the past 2 years, and a lot of that's just due to injuries. I think we have not seen Dr. Laurent's best over the past 2 seasons. In other words, he looked more fluid and just more all-around capable during his first 3 seasons, and I think we've seen a bit of a dip over the past 2 seasons from Dr. Laurent, which is disconcerting because he's making $8.9 million this season, which is a pretty stout cap number. So I am really hoping that moving forward next season, we can start to see the true Dr. Laurent, the healthy guy who can really step up in the pass blocking and also the run blocking to a degree. Really step up and see the guy that we thought we were getting when we paid him this kind of money in the first place, $8.9 million. Andy Reid typically does not pay a lot of money to interior offensive linemen. He went ahead and did that here with Dr. Laurent. He and Brett Veach did. And so that's a lot of money there to spend on an interior offensive lineman. And you would just like to see Laurent get back to being healthy and being more of the full complete guard that we know he can be. We saw that in his second and third seasons when he was really just kind of blossoming out. Wisniewski is moving on to free agency. I don't suspect we'll see him back, although it wouldn't surprise me if the Chiefs do pull him back. But the age is creeping up there. I don't know what the cap number will be for him, what he could get in free agency. If I could get Wisniewski back for $1 million a season, $2 million a season, maybe even $3 million, I would do that in a heartbeat, because when he played last year, which he didn't play the whole season, I think he got about 400 snaps. When he played, he looked pretty good, very much a contributor. So, and then of course Rankin back here at $724,000. What I would really love to see if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, and I've already harped on this for both of the past 2 off seasons, so this is old hat for you guys. I would really love to see them, if they can't get Wiley for $5 or $6 million, just go ahead and let him walk, because I need to start having a cheaper offensive line moving forward. I would love to see them use one of their high-end draft picks right here at guard this season. And then I would love to see them bring Wisniewski back for probably $2 or $3 million. And I think he'd be pretty well covered there at guard. And I would like to see them start to get a little younger at the deeper spots of the offensive line, especially on the interior. That's it for today. Thank you so much. Congratulations again to everybody in Kansas City. We'll have more videos this offseason talking about the offense. We'll talk about the overview. We'll talk about the free agents overall and the cap space overall. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.